Hi, I'm Deb Saxon, AIPAC's Deputy Director for Policy and Government Affairs. I'm honored to be joined today by Ambassador Danon. Ambassador Danon has enjoyed a long career in public service, including as a minister and member of Knesset. In his latest book, In the Lion's Den, Israel and the World, he chronicles his experiences as Israel's 17th permanent representative to the United Nations. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us today from Tel Aviv.
Thank you for having me today, Deb.
It's great to connect with you again. So let's start this conversation off by you sharing with us a little bit of your background, your career. What is it that led you to become Israel's ambassador at the UN?
So, Deb, it all goes back to my childhood, where I started to learn about the geography of Israel, about the history of modern Israel. I used to read a lot. Today I have to argue with my daughters about reading, but back then we had no social media and no TikTok, so it was only books, and I loved to read, and that got me excited about Israel in general. My late father, Joseph Danon, which I write a lot about him in the book, he was wounded in the war of attrition in the Jordan Valley. And he was a real patriot, but he could not hike with me, so he actually encouraged me to take the hikes by myself. And that's what I did. So I would come back home and I would share with him the stories, the sights. And from that love to the land of Israel, I became politically active in high school. I started to promote my ideas, my vision, very, very enthusiastic about everything. And also it was my first interaction with the world Jewry, with the diaspora. I was chosen to represent my high school in a delegation, and at the age of 16, I flew to the US and Canada. And for the first time, I was lucky to start to learn about the great bond between the Jews in Israel and the Jews in the diaspora. The military service, I served as an officer, so you cannot do any politics there. But once I finished my service, I joined the Likud party, and for years I dealt with the Jewish and Zionist education until I got elected to the Knesset, to the government, and eventually to become Israel's ambassador to the UN. So my lesson is hike in Israel. We have a beautiful country. Enjoy the treks. You don't know where it will lead you.
The title of your book, In the Lion's Den, it was not always, for your 5 years as ambassador, it was probably not always the most easy time, that there were challenges. I wonder if you could maybe share with us a few of those stories, what it was like, how it felt to represent Israel in the halls of the United Nations.
So first, when you speak about the title, I used our tradition and religion as a platform to build bridges. I'm a proud Jew, I'm a proud Zionist, and I spoke a lot about the Bible. So, in the Bible, it speaks about Daniel that spent a night in the lion's den. I had to spend 5 years at the UN headquarters. It wasn't easy, but I'm optimistic by nature. We have a lot of friends. And the most challenging thing for me was the gap between what you see publicly and what you know privately. I can host ambassador for a Shabbat dinner, and then the following Monday, he would see me and he would ignore me in the halls of the UN. So it wasn't easy at the beginning, but I learned to realize that you have to walk slowly, gradually, make friends. And I was very proud that we got the Abraham Accords. I worked a lot with my colleagues from Arab countries. I visited the UAE in 2016 before the accord, and now to see what's happening, it's amazing. But if you want a strong memory, for me, the strongest memory happened in December 2016. We had a great relationship with the Obama's administration. I worked very closely with Ambassador Samantha Power. But right before the end, unfortunately, Secretary Kerry and President Obama pushed a resolution to the floor of the Security Council, Resolution 2334. And for me, it was the most challenging week of my life because, I'm used to fight, but usually, you fight your adversaries. The UN, mainly the Palestinians, the Arab League, the EU. But at that point, I was really by myself. And for me, it was a strong moment. But I know that the bond between the US and Israel is so strong. We overcame that disagreement, and we continued the great cooperation between our nations.
Well, we did overcome it, but I remember back to that time too. It was an unbelievably challenging time. And our work, just in the days after, we were very proud that the Congress passed on a really broad bipartisan basis resolutions really condemning that resolution in the House and a statement out of the Senate as well. The latest sort of incarnation of anti-Israel activity out of the UN was the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry last May after the Gaza conflict. Now, this commission, as you know, it's permanent, it's open-ended. They're looking to investigate and gather evidence to really build a case to criminalize Israel's very existence and actions. What do you think the United States and Israel can do to mitigate the impact of this commission, as well as maybe even end it?
So first, Deb, I think it's legitimate to criticize Israel. We are open for criticism. But what's happening at the Human Rights Council, it's not criticism. It's a game that we know the results of the game. We know that it's one-sided. We look at the people who were nominated for that committee, and we decided together with the US not to cooperate with that committee. I know that some good NGOs are doing a great job dealing with the committee, but as a state, we ignore that committee. And at the UN, I used to tell my colleagues, if you have any open issue that you want to check, send me the information. I will get back to you. And that's what I did. I'll give you an example. During one of the operations in Gaza, unfortunately, there was an incident that the innocent Palestinians were killed in one of the attacks. And when I got the information, I called my friends in the IDF, and we found out that they were actually killed by a mortar that was sent from Gaza. It didn't cross the border, and it killed innocent Palestinians. And when I showed the data, the intelligence information to my colleague at the UN, he apologized. So we can answer every question. We are open to every discussion. But when you know that you have a one-sided entity, my personal opinion that the US should not take part in the Human Rights Council until they actually deal with human rights violations and not with its obsession against Israel.
I want to shift back to what you spoke about before, the Abraham Accords. First of all, I know that you were very involved from really the inception, which was earth-shattering, when this news broke that Israel was going to be building these relations and these countries were going to normalize relations with Israel. I wonder if you can share with us at this stage, first of all, what you've been doing and how you've been involved in those growing relations, but also how you see those attitudes and relationships really shifting the reality in the region.
Well, first, it's a blessing. A few weeks ago, I led a delegation of ministers and diplomats that came to the region. We went to the UAE, to Bahrain, and then to Israel, and they saw the level of cooperation, the coexistence, and we can do a lot together to support other countries as well. But when I worked at the UN, it was different. We cooperated with many countries fighting radical Islam, fighting the regime of Tehran, Hezbollah, but everything was done behind the scene. In the book, I describe a meeting I had with the ambassador from the UAE. And we used to meet in secret places, like hotel rooms. Nobody knew that we were meeting. In one of those meetings, I walked into the lobby and I saw the media there, like dozens of reporters. And I was worried that actually somebody tipped the media. And then I see Kim Kardashian getting out of the elevator. And I felt relieved that they were not there for me. There was a better reason for them to be in the hall of the hotel. But everything was done secretly. Also, my trip to the UAE, we made sure that nobody will take pictures and nothing on social media. And look what's happening today. Last time I came to the UAE, so many interviews. We have 14 flights a day from Tel Aviv to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So it is exciting. And I hope that together with the US, we'll be able to broaden this cycle of peace. I think there are more countries, important countries, that are ready to do that step.
Having these relations out in the open is so impressive and so necessary and needed for further progress. I wonder, back to the United Nations, a lot of these countries are still voting against Israel's position or against the United States' position regarding sort of Israel-related issues. Do you think that at some point there will be some kind of impact there as well?
We Israelis, we are not patient. We want everything yesterday. So we should take our time. It's not easy for our colleagues, that belong to the Arab League all of a sudden to vote with Israel. And the same happened with Egypt and Jordan. We signed very important peace treaties and still they voted against us in most cases. But sometimes you can cooperate with those countries. You can share information, you can work with them even when they vote against you. I think once you would see that you have a massive votes within the Arab League that normalize their relations with Israel, then the time will come where they can actually start to change the voting pattern. So we are not there yet, but look, we have now treaties with Egypt, Jordan, the UAE, Morocco, Sudan, and many more countries in the near future. So I think the numbers are working to our advantage.
Yeah. If you were to look, as a diplomat, and you look into the future for a vision for Israel, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, really, what are the most sort of ripe opportunities for Israel to pursue, given these new relations and the opportunities through the Abraham Accords?
So I'm very optimistic. I think we can build more bridges. We can have more partnerships. And I think we can do more to support other countries as well. Today we have a strong economy, strong country. We can help developing countries with our technology, with our know-how. We are doing it, but not enough. And in the book, I stress the fact that we should do more and we can collaborate with our allies in the region to work on those issues. And once we do that, we can demand more from those countries to support us. When I look at the book, maybe it just came out and I'm really excited about it. But my main message was that in one hand, we can build more bridges. We have diplomatic relations with 160 countries and we can, do more. But at the same time, we have to always take the appropriate decision to secure our safety. So there is no contradiction. You can have a lot of friends, a lot of bridges, but when the time comes to take tough decisions, we should do what's good for our security, our safety. This is the main lesson that I try to transmit in the book.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Ambassador, so much. I hope that you mentioned earlier that your daughter is not a big fan of reading. I hope she's read your book.
She did because there are great pictures of her. So she insisted to look at the pictures first, and then she read the book and she loved it.
Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for meeting with us today, for this conversation, and for everything you're doing to strengthen the bonds between America and Israel and the world.
Thank you. I want to thank you and to thank AIPAC for the great work that you are doing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
That wraps up our conversation. Thank you all so much for joining us today.